A local woman is sharing her story of the costs of war and the price we pay when veterans don't get the mental health treatment they need.
Yeah, today is National Post-Traumatic Stress Awareness Day, a chance to encourage those who need help to seek it. But for the widow of Staff Sergeant Alan Thomas, today means another chance to share the story of what can happen when that help never comes.
Our Sarah Blake Morgan is here to tell us more. Sarah Blake.
Yeah, Thomas served 3 combat tours, was injured multiple times, and survived an IED explosion. But his bravery and valor are drowned out by the final headline of his life, a double murder-suicide. His widow Danica tells me came after he tried getting help with the brutal mental scars he brought home from battle. The Ruck March.
Every time I would think about stopping,
a task ingrained in the DNA of a soldier.
I would put myself mentally at this place where, what would it feel like for a ball bearing to rip through somebody's chest?
Carrying a heavy load mile after mile.
How would it feel to put a gun to my head and pull the trigger?
Refusing to quit.
I would have no choice but to keep going because other people couldn't.
Danica Thomas isn't a soldier, but her husband Alan was.
He wanted to serve forever.
Forever. Cut short for Staff Sergeant Alan Thomas, an experienced combat infantryman and paratrooper deployed to Afghanistan with the storied 82nd Airborne Division in 2010.
A suicide bomber blew up in front of him and ripped through his chest.
His injuries were career-ending.
I just knew I was never going to get him whole again.
For 3 years, Alan battled the effects of a traumatic brain injury and severe post-traumatic stress disorder.
There's no handbook on how to navigate all of that.
Danica, then 24, did what she could to support him while caring for their little girls, 3 and 6 months old.
The end result of his life is something that I will always feel like I could have done something about. I just knew something wasn't right.
It was September of 2013.
I ran after him, and when I called for him, he wouldn't turn around and look at me.
Alan went into a neighbor's house down the street from their Fayetteville home and shot and killed 2 people and their dog before turning the gun on himself in what was later described as a flashback.
I believe he thought he was in Afghanistan.
Days prior, Alan tried to get help.
He went to the VA for help, and they had no beds available to keep him.
A decorated veteran with 3 combat tours, but that was not his final tagline.
And my husband came home a hero and died a villain.
The heaviness of his last moments still haunt Danica.
There's guilt that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemies.
It took Danica years to talk about what her husband did that day.
There was no escaping or hiding.
But it's now become her purpose, working to decrease suicide numbers by sharing Alan's story with veterans who very much understand the darkness carried home from combat.
The worst day of my entire life, I talked about 2 people that experienced really horrible days.
A portion of the Soldier's Creed reads, "I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade."
Do you ever think about what Alan would think of your newfound purpose?
Yeah, I do.
Danica's soldier can no longer live that warrior ethos, so she is marching on in his place.
I know that I am the person that he would have wanted me to be.
Now, while Danica's trauma is very hard for any of us to fathom, she repeatedly said during our interview that it pales in comparison to what the victim's family has felt. She's heavily involved with the Charlotte-based veterans nonprofit, the Independence Fund, and their suicide prevention program, Operation Resiliency. They provide retreats, mentorship, and overall support for combat veterans fighting PTSD. Of course, if you or a loved one is struggling, you can call the Veterans Crisis Line 24/7 at 1-800-273-8255.
Sarah Blake, powerful story, and
yeah.
to that widow for talking about it and bringing it to our attention, thank you and thank her.